Hi, I'm Pete Krause, and today I'm going to show you how to play Space Hulk Death Angel the card game, except today with the solo player rules. This is a classic 2010 fantasy flight game, and it has a really cool solo player variant. I love this game, and I want you to be able to experience the rich theme and the tense situations you get into, where even the smallest mistake that you make or continuous bad rolls of the dice that you have will make you lose. In the solo player variant of Space Hulk Death Angel, you get to lead 3 combat teams of Warhammer 40k Space Marines on a mission to rid the ship called the Space Hulk of the Genestealers that infest it. While in the Space Hulk, you will lead your Marines through 4 different locations, and if you make it to the 4th and final location and fulfill the requirements of that location with at least one of your Space Marines alive, you win. Alternatively, you can win if you defeat all of the Genstealers at that 4th and final location, but you still need to have at least one of your Space Marines alive. Now, losing this game is much easier. You lose when all of your Space Marines die. To set up for the solo player game, find the 4 Voidlock cards. Look for the one that says set up for 1 player. Put this card aside and take the other 3 and put them back in the box. Out of all of your location cards, sort out just locations 2, 3, and 4. You can put all the location cards with 1A, 1B, or 1C back in the box. They get used for the multiplayer game. Shuffle each pile and randomly choose 1 location card from each. Those are the only other location cards you're going to use for the game. Create your location deck by putting location 4 on the bottom, followed by 3 and 2. Select combat teams of Space Marines. One option is you can randomly draw 3 of these Space Marine team tokens. This way you never know what teams you're going to end up with. My recommendation for your first few games is to select 3 teams of your choice by looking at the cards first. Later on, when you become a little more skilled in the game and you want some more challenge, do it randomly. The teams I'm going to choose is the orange team, the yellow team, and the gray team. Each combat team of Space Marines has 2 Marines and then 3 action cards. And so you'll see for my teams, orange, gray, and yellow, I have 6 Space Marines and then 9 action cards. Take your 9 action cards and set them in a pile off to the side. Shuffle your Space Marines, and then we'll lay them out in what's called the formation. Start with our location deck, then our Voidlock card. Underneath our Voidlock card, we're going to take our shuffled Space Marines and lay them out, the top 3 facing left, and then the bottom 3 facing right. If you need to flip these cards over to change their facing, do so. This is our formation. Shuffle your Genstealer cards. We're going to put this deck right here next to your locations. Then shuffle your event cards and put those on the other side of the formation. Next, find all of your terrain cards. Look at your Voidlock card. We need to find the terrain cards that match the icons as listed in the left side and the right side of this Voidlock card. I take these 4 terrain cards right now and set the other ones off to the side. They might get used later in the game. So now that I've found my terrain cards that get used to start the game, I look at the Voidlock card to see where they get placed. Next to each icon for the terrain cards, there's a number and an arrow. On the left side of our formation, the number indicates how many spaces down from the top those cards get placed. On the right side of our formation, the numbers indicate how many spaces up from the bottom those cards get placed. So I start with my door. That has a 1 with a down arrow. And so I place that 1 space down, The next one is my dark corner. That gets placed 3 spaces down. I look at my ventilation duct. That goes 3 spaces up from the bottom. And then the next one is my corridor. That gets placed 2 spaces up from the bottom. Find all of your support tokens and place those off to the side. So next we look at our void lock card. There's 6 Genstealers on the left side of the formation and 6 Genstealers on the right side. So I take this deck of Genstealers and form what are called the blip piles. And the reason these are called blip piles is imagine your Space Marines have handheld trackers that show blips for all the movement in this location. 6 blips on the left side, 6 on the right. So the last step of setup is we draw one of our event cards and flip it over. All we look at right now on this event card is just the bottom. So you'll notice down here we have 2 different icons matching the icons on our terrain cards. This one's for our door and this one's for our ventilation duct. Underneath those terrain card icons we have a triangle that's yellow and a triangle that's white. The triangle that's yellow tells us that there's a major spawn on this door card, and the triangle that's white tells us that there's a minor spawn on the ventilation duct. So how do we know how many Genstealers spawn for a major spawn or minor spawn? For that, we look at the void lock card. At the bottom of this card, we have a number 2 in the yellow triangle and a number 1 on the white triangle. That tells us that for a major spawn, we spawn 2 Genstealers. For a minor spawn, we spawn 1. So when we spawn 2 Genstealers at the door, we take those out of this left blip pile. I like to arrange Genstealers so you can see the icon of the Genstealer on the lower left corner. We have a minor spawn at our ventilation duct, so I draw 1 Genstealer out of the right blip pile and place that next to the ventilation duct. We're ready to play. Space Hulk Death Angel is played over a series of rounds, where on your turn you select one of each of your colored combat team actions from your hand. Then you perform those actions in order from lowest to highest. After you perform your actions, the Genstealers attack your Space Marines, and then you draw and resolve an event card. You continue playing rounds until either all of your Space Marines die, or you win by fulfilling the requirements on the final location card, or wiping out all the Genstealers in that final location. Okay, so now we have the game set up. So what's happening here and what do we need to be aware of? So all of your Space Marines are now in the Void Lock. They're just entering the Space Hulk. Within the Void Lock, we have a door, a dark corner, a ventilation duct, and a corridor. In the ventilation duct, there's 1 Genstealer who is engaged with Brother Claudio. Next to the door, there's 2 Genstealers who are engaged with Brother Scipio. So really, what your Space Marines are trying to do here is eliminate these Genstealers and get through at least one of these blip piles to be able to move to the next location. So the first step of your turn is to select 3 actions. In the solo player game, you will choose 1 card from each of your 3 combat teams, and each of your combat teams has the same 3 actions to choose from: a move and activate, a support, and an attack. So to be able to show you how all of the actions work, I'm going to select 1 of each type from my 3 factions, although you can select any combination of these actions as long as you have just 1 card from each colored combat team. So I'm going to select an attack card here, I'll select a support card from my yellow team, and then I'll select the move and activate from my gray team. The rest of these cards make up your hand for next round. So now that you know how to select your actions, now the bad news. The cards you play this round won't be able to be selected for next round.
Oh no!
So I have my 3 actions selected. The order these activate is from lowest number to highest number, as stated in the upper left corner of the card. So the first card I get to play on my turn is Defensive Stance. This is a support card. This allows you to place 1 and only 1 support token from the supply on any of the Space Marines in the formation, even if that Space Marine has more than 1 support token. So I'm going to place my support token on Brother Scipio. As we'll see later, a support token allows you to re-roll the die when that Space Marine is attacking or defending. Oh yeah, and if you run out of support tokens in the supply, you can't place new support tokens until you make new ones available. So you can see my support card also gives me a special ability that lasts for this whole round. Each time one of my defending Space Marines spends a support token to re-roll a die, the attack misses unless the new roll is 0. So it helps me out if I get in a bind, which we'll see what happens here. The next card that resolves is our Move and Activate. You can perform a Move and Activate action with both Space Marines in the combat team. So this combat team is gray, so that would mean Brother Scipio and Lexicanium would both be able to take this Move and Activate action this turn. There are 3 steps to this action that have to be taken in order, and each of these steps are optional. You can first move your Space Marine to an adjacent position in the formation. You switch positions with the adjacent Space Marine only, and all-terrain and Genestealers stay where they are. So I could move this other gray Space Marine named Brother Scipio. However, I'm going to have Brother Scipio just stay here. I want him to be next to the door, and you'll see why. Next, you have the option of changing your Space Marine's facing. This means whether he faces left or right. I'm going to change Brother Scipio's facing back to his original facing. Facing is important because a Space Marine can normally only attack what's in front of him or activate what's in front of him. And I want Brother Scipio to activate this door next. The last part of a Move and Activate is to activate terrain. Now you can't activate all terrain, only terrain that says activate on it, like this door here. Again, your Space Marine would have to be facing the terrain to activate it. So in the case of the door, the instructions state place 1 support token on this card. When traveling, the current player may first slay 1 Genestealer in the formation for each token on this card. And so that kind of acts like a bomb that you plant on the door, so when you move through the door, you can blow up the Genestealers as they come through the door. It's pretty cool. So Brother Scipio is going to activate the door and put 1 support token on this to blow up a Genestealer when they travel through the door. So on my Move and Activate card, I have some additional text which reads, after resolving this card's action, you may discard 1 card from either blip pile. Because we're done with Move and Activate, I can take 1 card from 1 blip pile and put it in the discard. I'm going to take it out of this blip pile and discard it here. The last card that activates is our attack action. This allows you to attack a swarm of Genestealers with each of your Space Marines in that combat team color. So in this case, Brother Valencio or Brother Leon. In order to attack, your Space Marine has to be facing and in range of the Genestealers he is attacking. So we talked about facing during the Move and Activate. This is indicated by this arrow that's on my Space Marines card. These are facing left, these are facing right, so my attack affects Brother Valencio and Brother Leon. Brother Valencio is facing these Genestealers, Brother Leon is facing this one. So the next thing we have to determine, are they in range? So if we look at your Space Marine card, we have their name, we have range, and then we have some flavor text. Let's go back to range. So Brother Valencio has a range of 2, and Brother Leon has a range of 3. So how does range work? We can start with Brother Claudio. Since he has a range of 0, it's pretty simple. With a range of 0, all you can attack is what you're engaged with. So Brother Claudio could only attack this Genestealer. If he had a range of 1, then he could attack anything in the corridor here, or anything, if there was a Genestealer over here, he could attack that. Now if we look at Lexicanium, he has a range of 2. So that would allow him to attack anything he's engaged with, which is nothing at this time, but he could attack here. This is a range 1, and then he could attack anything in this space with a range 2. And then Brother Leon down here has a range 3, so he can attack anything here, 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 or here. So to begin my attack, I'm going to attack with Brother Valencio, and I'm going to attack these 2 Genestealers. The way you attack is pretty simple. You roll the die. If you roll a skull, you remove 1 Genestealer. If you don't roll a skull, you don't remove a Genestealer. The numbers on this die are only used for defending, so they mean nothing when you attack. It doesn't mean if I roll a 2 with skulls, I would remove 2. It just means for 1 skull, 1 Genestealer. So I'll be able to attack with Brother Valencio since he's facing these Genestealers, and he has a range of 2. He'll be able to hit them, if he rolls right. So he rolls a die, and he rolls a skull. So he removes 1 Genestealer, and that goes in the discard pile. Next we get to attack with Brother Leon. Our attack card gives Brother Leon a special ability, and it says Brother Leon may attack up to 3 times instead of just once. So Brother Leon's a pretty powerful dude, and that's why I chose this combat team. So we're going to attack with Brother Leon. He's facing this Genestealer, and he's got a range of 3, so he can easily target this Genestealer. Now he just has to roll a skull, which he does. And I take this Genestealer and put him in the discard. Brother Leon could attack 2 more times, but since there's no more Genestealers in range, he's done. When Genestealers attack, they attack in swarms. A swarm is considered 1 or more Genestealers in the same position and facing. So each swarm attacks starting from the top and working your way down the formation. I'm putting another swarm out here just as an example. This would be considered a swarm since there's 3 in the same position and facing. This single Genestealer is also considered a swarm. If there are 2 or more swarms attacking the same position, start with the left swarm first and then attack with the right swarm next. In the case of our game, we only have 1 Genestealer in our formation, so he's going to attack Brother Scipio. A Genestealer swarm only attacks the Space Marine it's engaged with. This Genestealer would not be able to attack Brother Valencio, only Brother Scipio. The way a Genestealer attacks is you roll a die, and this isn't good, because I have to roll a die greater than the number of Genestealers in the swarm. In this case, I would have to roll 2 through 5. By the way, the numbers on this die are 0 through 5. I rolled a 0, and that means Brother Scipio would die unless he had a support token. This is why I place a support token on Brother Scipio to give him a reroll chance. The support token allows Brother Scipio to reroll his die, and I reroll my die. In this case, I roll a 2, and Brother Scipio lives to see another day. So let's just do a what if. What if there's 3 Genestealers in a swarm attacking Brother Goriel? He would have to roll a 4 or a 5 to survive this attack, and he would die. When one of your Space Marines inevitably dies, remove the Space Marine for the rest of the game. The formation will shift to fill in the empty space. When this happens, leave any Genestealers in the empty space and then shift whichever segment of the formation is smaller, either up or down to fill the gap. In this case, this is my smaller segment here. Brother Leon shifts up to fill the gap. If there were any terrain cards or Genestealers, they would also shift up to fill the blank space. And by the way, it's okay to have more than 1 terrain card on the same position. Now, if you lose the last Space Marine of that combat team color, you must also discard all of that combat team's action cards as well, and play the rest of the game without them. After Genestealer's attack, draw 1 event card and resolve the text from the card first. Then resolve the Genestealer's spawn and movement as seen on the bottom of the card. So in the case of our text, it says choose a Space Marine with at least 1 support token, discard all of his support tokens. Well, in this case, none of my Space Marines have support tokens, so I don't have to worry about that text, and I'm kind of glad that Brother Scipio just used his support token, otherwise it would be lost. Next, we have a major spawn in our ventilation duct, and a minor spawn in our corridor. So if I match my event card up here with the Voidlock card, I can remind myself that the major spawn is for 2 Genestealers and the minor spawn is for 1. So I'm going to place 2 Genestealers in the ventilation duct and 1 in the corridor. Since the terrain that's impacted by our event card is on the right side of our formation, I draw the Genestealers out of my right blip pile. So for the ventilation duct, since this was a major spawn, it gets 2 Genestealers. And for the corridor, since this was a minor spawn, it just gets 1 Genestealer. Now that we've resolved the Genestealer spawn, next we can resolve the Genestealer's movement as indicated by this small area on the event card. The icon to the right of the arrows here lets us know that any Genestealer swarm with at least 1 Genestealer with this icon will need to move. The up and down arrows, as noted here, let us know that the swarm will move down the left side of the formation and up the right side of the formation. As a reminder of this, you can look at these small arrows as noted in the corners of the Space Marine cards. The only swarm who's impacted by our event card is this swarm here, because the icon matches the icon that's on our event card. So in this case, this swarm is going to move down the formation 1 space. Let's just do a what if with a swarm that I just added. This Genestealer swarm has 3 Genestealers, 2 of which do not match the icon on our event card, however 1 of them does. In this case, the whole Genestealer swarm would move 1 space down the formation. If the impacted Genestealer swarm was to move past the end of the formation, that swarm would just flank the Space Marine instead. The only other type of movement as noted on some event cards is defined by this arrow. Genestealer swarms with at least 1 Genestealer of the type noted on the event card just flanks or moves behind the Space Marine. If that were the case, the Genestealer would just go behind the Space Marine and then cause some trouble because Brother Scipio is not facing that Genestealer now. So now we've resolved everything on this card, and then I place it in the discard. By the way, if your event deck runs out of cards, you just take your discard, shuffle it, and create a new event deck. So then you start the next round, and you have to draw 3 new cards. However, just remember you can't use the action cards you played from the last turn, so set those aside and choose from the 6 remaining cards in your hand. You would be able to select 1 card from each of your colored combat teams. So I have 6 remaining cards, and I would choose 3. 1 from my yellow combat team group, 1 from my orange combat team group, and 1 from the gray combat team group. So now that we know how all phases of the game work, let's talk about traveling. You have to travel in order to keep moving through locations to reach the final location to win the game. When you travel, all of your Space Marines travel to a new location at the same time, and unfortunately, so do all of the Genestealers. One exception to this would be if you were able to activate the door, where you would remove 1 Genestealer for each support token on the door. So travel is triggered at the end of any phase where there are no more Genestealers in any one of the blip piles. The exception to this would be if you were at the final location. So when a blip pile runs out, finish the current phase you are in and then travel. Traveling is similar to how we set up the Voidlock location at the setup of the game. You first flip over the next location card, then you remove existing terrain cards and place the new terrain cards as shown on the location card. So in this case, my corridor gets placed 2 spaces down. My door gets placed 4 spaces down. On this side, my ventilation duct gets placed 3 spaces up from the bottom. Then we bring out a new terrain card and the Promethium tank gets placed 2 spaces up from the bottom. Then discard existing blip piles and then refill the blip piles with the new numbers as noted on the new location card, and get 5 for the left side and 6 for the right. If the Genestealer deck were to run out of cards, you would just shuffle the discard pile to make a new deck. The next thing you do is read any special text on this card, and resolve any upon entering effects immediately. For this card, Black Holds, the current player chooses a swarm if able, and spawns 2 Genestealers on it. If 0 swarms in the formation, this has no effect. Unfortunately, we have swarms, so I choose one of my swarms and spawn 2 Genestealers. So since my orange combat team has already attacked, I think I will spawn right here because I'll have my gray team attack next round. So you can see very quickly the difficulty level of my game has increased. If the fourth location you encounter is a Genstealer lair, I'm very sorry for your unfortunate situation because this card spawns 2 Broodlords. The Broodlords are a special kind of Genestealer in that when they are added to a swarm, they decrease the value of your die by 1, and the Broodlord has to be the last remaining Genestealer in the swarm in order for you to defeat it. One last thing to keep in mind with Broodlords is that they have 2 different Genestealer icons listed on the card, so this makes them more likely to move during the event phase. Fun stuff. So that's it for Space Hulk Death Angel. I wish you lots of good decision making and lots of luck rolling the dice. If there's other games you'd like me to cover, or things I can do to make these videos more valuable to you, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, remember to subscribe, like, and let your friends know about these videos as well. Otherwise, we'll talk to you later.